people, we are live. Where am I going to look? I'm looking here. Nate and I were talking before this stream went live. Okay. Topics for the day. We're going to do Tulsi Gabbard suing Google. And there's going to be time we're going to have to discuss like the most recent developments in the Jussie Smollett lawsuit, which is the vlog that keeps on vlogging.
I know most people here are going to hate my view on it. Jussie, I like to call him Juicy Smollett, like what's his name? Dave Chappelle calls him Juicy. Yeah. Don't get me wrong, he's a liar, everything, whatever that. But I honestly am going to say, I think the ruling, the fact that their deal, that the prosecutors and Jussie Smollett, that's a deal that I've actually given to people for a similar thing when I was in ADA. So it's not. Well, when we get into it, we'll speak about it. But it's not as crazy as people think, as people make it out to be.
Well, we'll get it. We'll have to discuss whether or not, whenever that was given out in previous contexts, it was for a fake racial homophobic hate crime versus any other crime which people seem to be more forgiving on.
That's true.
Okay, now while everyone starts tuning in, I'm gonna go and okay. I can bring up these comments. I love this. Nate getting ahead of the stupid "why are we wearing sunglasses" question. There we go. Okay.
Oh,
Nate is going straight transparency tonight, so that although I can't see anything.
No, I don't have the sunglasses. The great part about it is, as you can see my eye is like almost all white. So what happens is my pupil stays open, but my doctor, they've got these new glasses where they have like little lines in them, so they block the light in a certain way, and then they gave me some new medication too. So I have like regular glasses on. So it's cool. But if it does start bothering me, I have my other glasses here. I'll transfer them into. But for the past like maybe week, it's been fine. I've been all right. I've been able to. It's so interesting. Like things that you take for granted. Looking at a sunny day without sunglasses, not having to wear sunglasses, is such an amazing experience for somebody who had to wear sunglasses for like the past 5 years to just go outside on a sunny day. You just don't know like the simple things in life that you appreciate, Okay. And I now appreciate it.
There's a lot of people in here who have never seen the first stream and don't know why you have the issue with your eye. 30 seconds. You want to tell them what the deal is?
Yeah. What happens is one of my eyes is an atrophying. I've lost one of my eyes. So what happens is it's supposed to come out, and I just haven't gone to get the surgery. So every time I go to the eye doctor every 6 months. They're supposed to take this eye out and put a prosthetic in. So I've been measured for the prosthetic, and my eye is just surviving long enough where it just hasn't atrophied to the point where they have to pull it out. So eventually it's going to come out. You can see it here. I don't know if you guys can see it, but it's totally dead. I'm totally blind. I can't see. But the only other issue I have now, which I'm starting to have now too, is that my pupil doesn't close. So just imagine having your eye wide open and just light glaring. So it gives me a headache. So that's why they gave me these glasses and the medication, so I don't have to so I don't have the headaches.
Okay, I knew that, but just so everybody knows what the situation is, and when Nate wears sunglasses, it's not to be too cool for school at 9 o'clock on a Saturday night. And if anybody was following my community tab post from this morning, where I thought I had the funniest joke in the world about rubber band litigation, about a non-serious procedure that I went through yesterday. And then someone said, "I think you mean rubber band ligation." And I was like, no, that my joke doesn't make sense. And I looked, and it was rubber band ligation, which we're all getting older and shouldn't be too ashamed or embarrassed to talk about. But when you go for colonoscopies, they sometimes find things, and they sometimes say you should have these things removed. And rubber band ligation is basically when people go up through your lower side and put in a tube to remove hemorrhoids. The H word that nobody wants to talk about. I was told it was an in and out 15-minute procedure. You could exercise. Everything was normal. And I have been walking funny since yesterday. So it was much more than what I was expecting.
Listen, you are going to be meme worthy. You just said it was an in and out procedure. It's like you've just given. If somebody can cut this video up, they're going to have a great time with this.
It feels like I've been walking around with an orange up my butt the entire for the last 24 hours.
Oh my God.
So, and then I've had colonoscopies before. This was worse than a colonoscopy. And I suspect it's because there was no medication, no, what's the word that they give you?
Anesthesia?
No anesthesia, no nothing. Just like, shocking. It was shocking. I went from jokes in a fetal position on a table in a hospital to no longer making jokes and tearing.
They put you on the side, right? Because that's when they did me the colonoscopy. They said lay on your side, and I thought everything was all right. Then I hit the high note, Like, oh my God.
I get in there. It's like you're in the room with 3 strangers. They tell you to take your pants off, turn over on your side, tuck your knees to your chest, and they're looking at your most private of private parts. Like, your butt is more private than your front. And like, anyways, and I'm making jokes like, oh, this is humiliating. And then when they put it's literally called an anoscope. They put it in so they can see what they need to do. No more jokes. There was no more joking after that. It was okay. It was painful. Anyways, all that to say, I thought I had the most hilarious joke that I had just discovered the most painful type of litigation, rubber band litigation, but I was misreading ligation the entire time.
Oh my God.
Okay, so that's it. Yes, the holiest of holes. No pun intended. And it was, anyways. You do what you have to do as you get older, but that doesn't stop you from being able to complain about it.
Oh my God, you don't know.
Okay, Tulsi Gabbard. We're in 6 minutes in, 150 people. Tweet the links out. Let everybody know like the notifications are sometimes slow to never, depending on what we're talking about. That's no true. Anesthesia, Howie Z. Nothing. And then the guy's like, I won't get into too much detail. It was painful. It was painful. Okay, Tulsi Gabbard, Google lost her. A lot of people were asking. Okay, hold on. Just before we get started, this is aliens aboard. No joke. I was telling my wife this. It's like, so now you know how I felt when I had to push 3 babies through my vajayjay. Like that's like it's the exact same feeling, but exponentially worse.
My wife is saying that about my colonoscopy, and I said, babe, women have been having babies for millions of years. This colonoscopy thing is something new. We just started with this. So.
Oh no, and yeah, I don't think we're used to it, and we should ever get used to it. But I don't think women are. But this is the joy of like knowing you're bringing life into the world versus this, which is just like the pain of knowing somebody's putting an anoscopy in your holiest of holes. Okay.
Oh my God.
I think people might be tuning out of this now.
Yeah, they're like, oh my God, they're talking about.
A lot of people were asking to cover the Tulsi Gabbard. And Nate, I don't know if you saw the lawsuit before we started looking into this. This is one of those lawsuits where when I was reading the news articles summarizing it, I had a better impression of the lawsuit than I did after having read it.
I thought Google might be in trouble. I was like, oh man, this sounds like Tulsi Gabbard, Democrat. It might be good. But then I read the lawsuit.
Suing Google. Now, the funny thing, and Nate and I were joking about this before the stream, sometimes people accuse me of being right-wing, conservative, even alt-right, depending on the day.
What?
And sometimes, Nate, I read the comments. Sometimes people accuse you of being left-wing.
I'm a left
of left. And we're both in agreement here. So everyone's going to have to interpret. I think you just went out of focus there, Nate.
Oh, hold on. Let me fix my camera.
People are going to have to determine now who is the biased one here. I think this lawsuit is among the worst lawsuits that I've read since I've started doing law vlogs on YouTube, and not because of any political thing. I actually like Tulsi Gabbard quite a bit, and I was expecting more from the lawsuit, and I can't hold it against Tulsi. She didn't draft the lawsuit. Yeah. But I think this lawsuit is a big letdown.
Yeah, I will say this. This was probably one of the worst lawsuits that I've seen while doing this, reviewing lawsuits on YouTube. This is the second worst. I'm going to review the top, like the worst, next week. But this one is like a close second. It's the shit, to say the least. Yeah, it's pretty bad. No, it's bad. It's bad.
We're going to walk through it. We're going to like pull up the relevant paragraphs. We're not going to spend too much time on it because this lawsuit, I don't want to be mean to it, and I don't want to be mean to whoever wrote it. I don't know the law firm. I didn't actually look at the law firm, so I can't even know who I'm being mean to. This reads like a high school debate where the introduction to the high school debate being given by someone with who's trying to shock the conscience of their viewers with inflammatory rhetoric, but very little substance.
Well, this to me, this lawsuit comes off as more of a PR stunt than an actual lawsuit that you're trying to win. You know, it's really about getting a message out rather than actually trying to win litigation. That's kind of how this lawsuit reads to me.
And very interesting. Like I was talking to my wife about it, and she said like this lawsuit's got people talking about Tulsi Gabbard more than any ads that Google might have gotten them talking about her. And I have the reflexes. I don't call them conspiracy theories, but I have the reflexes of thinking about all the alternatives as to why and the who. And it's a totally legitimate, even reasonable prospect. Like sometimes lawsuits themselves are good advertisements, and they show gumption and they show the willingness to fight the machine. But let's get into it, and we will we'll see what we think of this. Now I'm going to go share screen, and I'm going to go to Chrome tab and pull up the lawsuit. Now everyone's going to tell me if they can see this.
I can see it. Let me look.
Okay,
Yes.
there we go. And now I can't see my own lawsuit to bring it up. There we go. Okay, beautiful. Now everyone can see that. I'm going to go back to page 1 if I can get there. Okay, so let's see by way of whys and ends. Okay, everyone. Viva, did you think the lawsuit is a pain in the ass? Everything today has been a pain in the ass.
These are going to be the jokes all night. Live chat. We got you. We got you.
I was going to make a joke like if anyone sees me shifting left and right, then they know why at least. But I'm sitting on a nice cushioned seat, so it's. Oh, dude, I tell you, I feel the pain now.
Well, okay. Donuts? Did they give you a donut to sit on? They gave me a donut to sit on.
we actually have a donut from our third child that someone got us as a birthday. What do they call them? What are they called when the kid comes and they what's the thing?
The thing that makes breastfeeding easier?
No,
right?
no, but like when they have the birthdays for the presents for the babies, baby shower. We got a donut for a baby shower. Okay, so we go. Let's skip the plaintiff Tulsi now Inc. So this is the first thing to notice of anybody who's interested in this. The plaintiff is not Tulsi Gabbard herself; it's the campaign. Nate, you want to add anything to this, just in terms of like legal consequences?
Well, I think it's for me. I think politically, it does two things that are great for Tulsi. Now I can't speak to Tulsi. It allows her to, if the lawsuit's a stinker and people say it's a stinker, she can have plausible deniability. Well, hey, that's the campaign. But if it takes off and people say this is a good lawsuit, then she can step up to the forefront and say, hey, this is me. So it gives her enough to where she can deny it if it doesn't go well, or she can step up and say it's all me if it does go well. So that's why I think they let the campaign sue rather than just having her sue as herself.
And now the things I did not look up, I didn't look up who the principals of the company are to even see if it's her as an individual or campaign officials. Like, so I didn't look it up, but it's a corporate entity that is the plaintiff and not Tulsi herself as an individual for whatever consequence it has on your mind and spirit. I'm going to do my best not to ignore Super Chat as it comes through. Can everyone see this? I can't see if I can see the Super Chat.
Yes.
Right now. So Grandmaster Chef says, off topic, what do you think of cannabis? I'll get to it at the end. I have nothing against it, but I don't do it at this point in my life. When I was a kid, maybe. Okay, introduction.
That sound like Bill Clinton. Did you inhale?
Well, no, I'm never going to lie about it. I inhaled and I smoked. I used to smoke weed like when I was a teenager, but at a given point in time, given certain things that happened to friends, the last few times I did it was like I thought I was gonna. It was outright panic attacks and like never doing it again because couldn't stand it and I don't like losing control of my mental faculties anymore anyhow. So
when you're young, it's great, but when you're older, it's just like I don't want to be lush brain all night. I'm good.
No, that's it. Much would be one thing, but like I have enough thoughts per second as it is. Like marijuana slowing things down and giving you more thoughts in a second you can deal with. Okay. So listen to this. We're going to read it out loud just because it is what it is. Introduction. We live in a time of unprecedented political upheaval and division in the United States. Uncertainty and mistrust in American institutions, most notably the United States government, are at record highs. Everything from basic norms of civility and compromise to the sanctity of American elections suddenly seems in flux. Americans wonder how we got here, and they want to know where we're going. Nate, I've said this before, and I don't know what the deal is. In Quebec, we only allege one allegation per paragraph, and they're allegations of fact, not these pleadings. Now, I noticed these types of pleadings in the Salmon lawsuit, in Jussie Smollett, in what are some of the other ones that we noticed? In Nunes. I've noticed these types, but this just seems really over the top.
It's because it's a loser. It's well, again, this is just me. It sounds like a loser, and in the introduction, it allows you to pontificate these things. This, and because these are not your legal arguments. So you're given an introduction, and again, a lot of times, like when I was practicing at the DA's office, one of the most interesting things is they used to tell us, don't add too much BS if you're trying to win your motion. And the reason why is because the judge gets mad when he reads things like this. You're putting the person who's reading this in a bad position while reading it. So you want to be brief, you want to be concise, but something like this is not for the court. This is more for people like us to read and news outlets to read, to give them some context. You know what I mean?
And that's the interesting thing, like, because in Quebec, and it's the same thing pretty much in Canada, is you allege facts, you don't allege argumentation, and you don't allege law. But now argumentation in law seems to be totally different in the States, where I've seen the argumentation alleged in the proceedings, which is new. But then argumenting, I mean, this is like alleging pleadings, where when I read this, I say, how are you going to prove this? Like, what are you going to do to prove this? And if you can't prove it, why allege it? And Abraham Lincoln said it, so I think I'm in good company. But like, man, it sets it up. I thought I was going to get into this lawsuit. I was already tuned out after the first paragraph.
Yeah, but don't like, look how long this introduction. The introduction is like 4 pages. Like, I mean, no, 5 pages. 5 pages of introduction. It's like, really, you're gonna, I would rather have that on some substantive legal arguments than just this junk that you're giving me. You don't need if you have 5 pages of introduction, your lawsuit's probably a loser.
So we'll get through it quickly, but I'll read as fast as I can. Against this backdrop, it's not surprising that the race for 2020 Democratic nomination for president of the United States is the most hotly contested. I don't know. I think the last 2016 was pretty hotly contested also, and the most politically open. I don't know, in recent memory. Americans want to hear fresh, diverse voices as they seek a new leader in this time of turmoil. Americans need to hear those voices. This is a double emphasis, italic and bold. I mean, that's like, okay, I mean, they should have just underlined it also, just to go for the 3-prong approach. Tulsi Gabbard is one of those voices. Gabbard is a former United States Congresswoman with over 15 years. I mean, okay, fine. So we know who Tulsi Gabbard is, and a lot of us like her already as an individual and as a speaker.
Yeah, I like Tulsi. I think she's cool. I like her.
She's cool. She's authentic. She's genuine. I like it when people speak and don't say every 3 seconds, not comparing to any other political leaders, but everyone who knows what I'm talking about knows what I'm talking about. She speaks authentically, and she doesn't hesitate. She doesn't hem and haw, and that usually is a sign that she believes in what she's saying. From a human perspective, is my assessment. I mean, then we get into paragraph 5. To speak to those Americans, Tulsi operated a Google Ads account. Google Ads account allows a political candidate to speak directly to people who want to hear from her. And again, I know a little bit more than the average person probably about Google Ads. And this is where I started taking issue in terms of how they're characterizing what Google Ads is. Because Google Ads is targeted advertisement. It's not a question of speaking to people. It's a question of targeted advertisement towards those people. Mm-hmm. And so I started reading this, and I started getting a little not tuned out, but turned off, because I don't think they're mischaracterizing, and I know deliberately because of where we're going to go, but they are deliberately trying to equate Google advertisements with free speech.
Yes.
And we know of the free speech being access to services, which we're going to get into, but I feel that this is an artificial conflation between free speech and Google Ads, but we'll get there. Let's see here. Something we can skip ahead, but we'll go through it and make this painful for everybody, or at least that is how things are supposed to work on Google's search platform, one of the largest forums for political speech in the entire world. In practice, however, Google plays favorites with no warning, no transparency, and no accountability.
But now it's interesting, because if you notice, paragraph 5 was talking about Google ad accounts, and now paragraph 6 is concluding about Google searches. So this is where I was like, these 2 paragraphs I was trying to figure out. I'm like, well, hold on. We were just talking about your Google ad account and how they messed up that. Now we're talking about searches. You know what I mean? It's kind of like 100%. They switch it just in the middle of the paragraph.
Well, and I think they're deliberately, or it's either deliberate or it's not deliberate, accidental or inadvertent, but they are confounding very important issues. One being Google Ads, one being searchability, and one being freedom of speech. So I guess that's
correct.
3. But the first 2 pages, which are the most important 2 pages, are a mess where even me reading it, I'm turned off, even though I want to be against Google. On June 28th, at the height of Gabbard's popularity among internet searchers in the immediate hours after the debate ended, and in the thick of the critical post-debate period, ... Google suspended Tulsi Google's ad account without warning. Okay, that's the cause of action, people. If you thought it was going to get more nitty-gritty than that, Google suspended Tulsi's account. We'll get into the why later.
But the ad account, just the ad account.
They didn't delete search. They didn't delete her from search results. From what's alleged, they didn't even manipulate search results so that Tulsi wouldn't come up. They suspended her ad account when people were searching for her the most.
Yes.
And so we have a paragraph 8, 9. Okay, they say for hours people were searching for her, and she was trying through Google to speak to them. Her Google ads were arbitrarily and forcibly taken offline. She's trying to speak to them, and she can't speak to them because Google suspended her ads account.
But But don't forget here, she's not alleging that they couldn't search for her, they couldn't find her. She's just saying that she couldn't take advantage of it through advertising to them, direct advertisement to them. That's all she's saying.
Yes, the real Bambunga says that was the tort. We all agree that was the tort. If that's what we're talking about, was suspending her ad account.
Yes.
But she goes on to say that she was preventing her. We're going to get into free speech violations where she said, I couldn't speak with my constituents, people who wanted to find me because they suspended my ad account. She just couldn't target them through ads. And whether or not that is a sanctionable tort, we'll get into it. But it wasn't a question of like having her Twitter suspended or her Gmail account taken down, Facebook, whatever, all these other things. She just couldn't run targeted ads because they suspended her ad account on Google. But presumably she could have still been on Facebook targeting ads through other means to make up for whatever loss that might have generated. Somebody
just to respond to someone in the chat. Someone said, "Did anybody see Steven Crowder's video about the search with Tulsi Gabbard?" I did, and what happens is that he did a search, a quick Google search, a YouTube search on Tulsi Gabbard, and her channel. She had a channel. It came out to be like 5th or 6th. So he was saying that, hey, look, all these other search items coming, you got to scroll down. So that was showing some discrimination against Tulsi Gabbard in YouTube. But if you actually look up all the Democrats who have YouTube channels from a United States search engine, it's the same thing, because if they were mentioned in the news, the most recent news articles and stuff come up about them, and then their channel comes up like 5th or 6th. But if you switch it and do it and hide yourself and act like you're from like Canada or something like that, then the search results switch based on from your location. So even though Crowder was right, it seems like there's a difference. But he overemphasized it and didn't actually do a search. If you search the other candidates, the same exact thing happens with them. So it's not different between what happens with Tulsi and what happens with the other candidates. All right, and we got Aaron Porter who says, maybe I missed it, but what are your thoughts on the Steven Crowder allegations? I think that's what we were just mentioning that. And we'll get into this later. But the funny thing is, like, Tulsi is going to allege that Google's targeting her because of her anti-Google discourse. The irony being that Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders probably have the same anti-Google discourse, if not worse, which would, might cause people to question whether or not she's actually being targeted, or whether or not that is a legitimate suspicion for why she might be targeted or why her account might have been suspended. The other more logical explanation is we're going to come to it. Super chat from Aaron Porter. I was a little slow. Thank you. I don't know what he's talking about. Unless you meant to the show. That's fine. Yeah. Google's arbitrary and capricious treatment of Gabbard's campaign should raise concerns for policymakers everywhere. Nothing new here. I mean, people have been on this for a while, especially come on, what's his name? Not Trey Gowdy, the other guy. Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz has been on this for a while and been harping on it for a while. This paragraph 13 is pretty much where I lost it in terms of reading it. With this lawsuit, Tulsi is fighting back. She will be heard. Nate, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, but the purpose of a lawsuit, I mean, there are lawsuits, the purpose of which is just to be heard, but typically the purpose of a lawsuit is to avail yourself of rights and not to make a statement by using the publicity of the lawsuit. No, that's a frivolous lawsuit. Your lawsuit is supposed to allege that you've been wronged and you have some remedy within law. May that be an injunction, may that be some type of monetary. But you're saying this, this for this reason, the law was violated and I should recover. Now, if you recover or not is obviously a difference. But here, I don't see any credible allegations where this person can actually recover from what we've just been reading. Yeah, what the damages are going to be, and we'll get there. Now, I'm going to just take out my notes to make sure I don't skip a paragraph that I wanted to get to. 15. Through its allegations, through its illegal actions targeting Tulsi Gabbard, Google has caused the campaign significant harm, both monetary, interesting, including potentially millions of dollars in foregone donations. Okay, and that's interesting because I don't know how targeted ads solicit donations, but I mean, it'll be very difficult to prove. And non-monetary, the ability to provide Tulsi's important message with Americans looking to hear it. But even more pressing is the ongoing threat of intermeddling in the 2020 United States presidential election by Google, an out-of-control tech giant looking to play favorites unless enjoined by this court. Is this written by a lawyer or by an advocate group? You know what I'm saying? You just don't know.
It is. It's. I mean, it is very, very. But it's advocacy drafting because the non-monetary, the ability to provide Tulsi's important message with Americans looking to hear it. That would be an issue if they shut her accounts down, they shut her email down, they shut her down. She's not deprived of providing her message. She's deprived, apparently, of running targeted ads to promote that message to targeted groups, which is a very, very different thing.
Well, one thing, though, especially even about the whole monetary that she's lost money because she can't get donations. That is just so speculative at best, you know. And from what I've been seeing in the news, it's not like she's been champ. She's been raising millions of dollars anyway. She's always been on the lower end of the. So she's trying to make it seem like I haven't raised all this money because they did this to me. But that's just not. You know, you have to prove that somehow.
Well, and this is another thing where like alleging things that are dangerous to allege because. If I'm Google and if this ever gets to like discovery stage, I presume there are ways to track where your leads, where your donations come from in terms of leads, what where they originate from. Yeah. And if none of them come from Google, I mean, then this allegation itself becomes totally untenable. Like if it turns out that you never got any meaningful donations through Google leads that they could track through clicks and pays, I mean, it's a totally frivolous allegation. It's exaggerated to a point where it loses credibility.
Well, jurisdiction and venue. This is obviously they have the two claims because they're in federal court and they have two claims of federal issue. That's the First Amendment claim under the Constitution. Then they have the Latham Act, which is false advertising and commerce. So those two pieces of those two allegations. That allows you to go to federal court, and then you'll see it has supplemental jurisdiction for the state of California claims, and that's just so the court can wrap up all the claims together in one session instead of letting you go to federal court for just the two claims and then state court for three claims. You can do it all in one court, and that's what this jurisdiction and venue is talking about.
Yeah, and we've touched on the jurisdiction and venue for anybody who's been watching the other lawsuits in terms of interstate parties and where they're doing commerce in a number of states. The criteria for what the jurisdiction we are under, we're in federal court now.
Yeah, we're in federal court in California. Even though Google is a Delaware corporation, so they're a foreign corporation, but she's suing because they do business in California, obviously with ads and stuff. And on top of that, she has two federal claims, causes of action, which is the First Amendment against the Constitution on Latham Act under, I think, was it 28 USC, something like that? Yeah,
and then she's also got the Unruh Act, not to mispronounce it, but that's a California law, which they want to apply, presumably because it'll be more plaintiff friendly.
Of course, yeah.
So she paid for the ads. This is Max 1 billion. Oh, sorry, I just lost it. It was Max 1 billion said that she paid for the ads, but they never showed them. I doubt that I doubt they took her money for them. I just don't think I don't think they were running the ads when she wanted to run them.
Yeah, because they had suspended her account because it was like, I think, well, I read inside here, there was something like, what's it called?
Spam.
They thought it spam. Yeah.
It violated Google's spam policies, which is a pretty legitimate excuse to suspend someone's ad account, which when what they're doing is basically targeting Google users and sending them targeted political ads.
Yeah.
Because let's see. Viva, before we get any further, over easy. Viva Frei says, the Red Elephant reported that YouTube lost 170 billion in ad revenue due to the new algorithms. This report was from a couple of months ago. It's very possible. I mean, one day we'll talk about how Twitter exists as a company. Has Twitter posted a profit since they went public?
Oh, I don't know.
If anybody in the audience, watching knows, at one point when these companies no longer make money, then you begin to ask the questions as to what they're doing and who's funding them. But let me make sure we didn't skip any paragraphs that I wanted to get to. Okay, jurisdiction and venue, technical garbage that nobody cares about. It's federal court in California because there are federal claims and state California claims, which we'll get to. Let's see here what we say here. Okay. Paragraph 25. During her career in Congress, Gabbard has moved to limit the power of big tech companies like Google and has fought to keep the internet open and available to all. Gabbard has co-sponsored legislation that prohibits multi-tiered pricing agreements for the privileged few. And this sounds like a political speech platform. I mean, it sounds like a political speech, but
she's trying to lay the foundation, obviously, to say that this is the reason why they did these negative things to me, and that's what she's trying to say.
And if I'm believing it, I think the first person they go after is Elizabeth Warren and not Tulsi Gabbard.
She's saying regulate them.
Break them up and regulate. She had spoken in favor of reinstating and expanding net neutrality to apply internet forums like Google. And then let's see here. Gabbard has repeatedly voiced her concerns about the power wielded by Google and other big tech firms on Twitter, where she has not been suspended. Okay, we got these tweets. And her ad account. And then it's paragraph 29 is the one I had. But Tulsi Gabbard's message is resonating with the American people. After the debates, when millions of Americans heard Gabbard's message for the first time, I wonder how they knew that it was for the first time, but probably just because it was the first debates. She was the single most searched for candidate, and she accomplished this despite having third lowest amount of speaking time. And so this is where I think she's making allegations that actually contradict the purpose of her suit. She was the single most searched for candidate, and she's complaining about Google somehow censoring her visibility or her ability to speak to people on Google.
Listen, again, it leads you to believe that this lawsuit, because reading through this lawsuit, just listening to you read the lawsuit it almost sounds like a Tulsi Gabbard commercial. That's what it sounds like. Vote for Tulsi.
No, I mean, I agree. In fairness, it might be working because a lot of people were asking me, I suspect you too, to deal with this lawsuit. And it's been fun. It's been fun reading this now because I've learned a lot of the technicalities through the other lawsuits that we've been reading, but this one was not. Yeah, this one's not drafted the way I would have thought it was going to be drafted.
I would have actually just sent them the PragerU lawsuit. Like, hey, you guys, just it's the same thing. The same thing's going to happen. It's a PragerU lawsuit all over again.
But PragerU even sent more well-founded than this. And
let me not disrespect PragerU. PragerU, their lawsuit was a lot better than this. I'm sorry, I don't want to compare, but they had relatively the same allegations.
Yeah. No, for sure. Okay, so paragraph 29. In order to share her message with the American people, which had already been demonstrated to increase it. Sorry, let me rephrase that. In order to share her message with the American people, which had already been demonstrated to increase her popularity, the campaign created a Google Ads account with Google. The account was governed by terms of use. Among other provisions, the terms provided that Google had the right to reject or remove specific target ad or destination at any time for any reason, for any or no reason. This is interesting. I'm not sure if they're alleging this to bolster or undermine her claim, but the account, so it's a freshly opened Google Ads account. She opened the account, paragraph 30, because Google operates one of the largest forums for speech in the world. It operates the largest search engine in the world and the largest advertising platform. Again, we're confounding advertising with free speech, but there is an overlap to some extent. Google has a monopoly over the internet search market. Okay, blah, blah, blah. We know what Google is. Mm-hmm. Let me see what the next paragraph that I thought was relevant. If anybody's
hold on. Just to say two things. 30 and 31, I think, are extremely relevant because she's trying to make this is the background to make the argument that Google is performing a public function that's so important to us as Americans that they should be held responsible for First Amendment violations. The First Amendment should apply to them because of this monopoly. 88%, 92% of internet searches, all that stuff. They're saying Google is so entrenched in American life and culture that they should be treated as if they were a state actor.
Okay, and that we touched on in PragerU, where we were talking about the conditions for holding a private company to government standards in terms of First Amendment issues.
Claims, yeah.
A monopoly, entanglement. What was the other one there? Public square, but I think that was not necessarily monopoly. But there's a number of criteria that allow a plaintiff to hold a private enterprise to government standards for free speach.
There's the three I'm talking off my head is that if you're some type of contractual agreement with the government, for instance, if there's a case called Burton v. Wilmington parking garage, and what happens is there was a black man who goes into a restaurant that happens to be in a government-owned parking lot. So there's a parking lot, there's a restaurant. He goes into the restaurant and he orders a meal. The restaurant says, we don't serve black people, kicks him out. So the Supreme Court said that restaurant cannot kick him out because by kicking him out, they would violate his rights under the 14th Amendment. So but the restaurant said, well, hold on, we're not a government actor, But the Supreme Court said, well, you are a government actor because you rely on government benefits to operate. You're in a government facility, you have a contract with the government, and the government has to upkeep your facility. So for purposes of the Constitution, you are a government actor and cannot discriminate. And they also did it with we talked about Marsh v. Alabama with the public town, where there was a town that was owned by the company, and they said, yeah, you run the sewers, you run the streets, you pay the cops, you are a public actor based on it. So those are like the couple of things that you're looking for. It has to be really, really, really outrageous.
Yeah, like an objective monopoly where it has become sort of a public service, entanglement in terms of getting subsidies from the government or loans or whatever. And then there were some other issues. But so basically, that's the argument right now, is that Google as a private enterprise should be subject to the Constitution as though it's a government entity because of its monopoly and public square form.
Yes.
Okay, so we skipped that. We go 32, 33. 33. For all these reasons, the campaign relied on Google and the account to promulgate Tulsi Gabbard's political message in the critical post-debate period of June 19th. Okay, whatever. So they suspend her account.
Yes.
On June 28th, 2019, right in the heart of a post-debate campaign and fundraising period for Gabbard, the campaign witnessed internet searches for Gabbard skyrocketing. Good. No problem with Google. Millions of Americans wanted to hear from her, and they went to Google to hear what she had to say. Good. Google's not giving her a problem. The campaign wanted to speak to the millions of Americans. When they talk about speaking to Americans through advertising, that's like, advertising is not speaking, it is shouting, but whatever. The campaign wanted to speak to millions of Americans asking about Gabbard through Google. It wanted to answer their questions about Gabbard and amplify Tulsi's message. So the campaign purchased ads ads to display when people searched Google for certain terms relating to Gabbard. Except in late June. Now, when did they start doing this? So in late June. Well, man, I don't know how much later it gets than June
28th. Yeah.
So in late June, so 1 or 2 or 3 days later, how many days are in June? 31, right?
I think 30, right? Is it 30?
30 days. I don't even know.
Let me look.
It is 30. July has 31st.
Yeah, so it's 30 days.
So
2 days later.
After everyone's Googling Tulsi's name, they suspend her account. So she did get away with ads for 2 days, it seems.
Or a day.
A day and a half. On the exact day when millions of Americans turned to Google to learn more about Gabbard, on the exact day when Americans made Tulsi Gabbard the most searched for Democratic candidate on Google, Google abruptly suspended the account. Abruptly suspended an account that had only existed seemingly for definitely less than a month.
Well, hold on. It could look. Well, look at 30. 35 says the campaign, right? It's on, what is it? It's I'm sorry. And 34 it says on June 28th, right? That's when everything happened. And then on 36 it says except in late June, right? So we're talking about maybe another 2 days. But then the next paragraph, 37, on June 28th again. So we're back on June 20. Millions of Americans asked Google about Tulsi Gabbard, and so there, but Google silenced her. So we're really, it seems like we're only talking about that one day. We're not really talking about the 29th and the 30th. We're talking about
the timeline could be better elucidated for anyone who might want to amend this in the future. But yeah, I don't know how we're bouncing back and forth, and then we're back to the original day. She sought answers so millions of Americans asked Google about Tulsi. Tulsi sought to answer them, but Google silenced her. This is high school debate. This is high school. I'm sorry. This is high school debate.
No, you conservative dog. Tulsi.
I want to love this. I want to love it.
Am I on the left side of the screen? I should be on the left side of the screen. Tulsi.
Despite the drastic nature of Google's actions, arbitrarily suspending the ad, they're throwing out so much inflammatory language in describing this that it's outlandish. Despite the drastic nature of Google's action, arbitrarily suspending the ad, they don't even know why it was suspended yet. At precisely the moment when the candidate was trending on Google, Google never offered a real or consistent reason for suspending the account. Okay, well, so they give her a bunch of. We should get into this. Problems with billing information or violations of our advertising policies. Those are two good reasons to suspend an advertising account.
You didn't pay us our money, Toby. You didn't.
Problems with billing will get your account suspended anywhere and everywhere. Google said the account was suspended because Google identified suspicious behavior in the payment activity in your account. Okay. And incidentally, that there's a logical potential explanation where an account that had never spent any money on Google ads all of a sudden starts spending $10,000 within a few hours. Google might, for the benefit of the account being so charged, they might legitimately suspend the account. At the very least, they can determine that it's in fact deliberate expenses that are being incurred.
Yeah.
Later, they changed course. They said it was temporarily suspended to verify your billing information and policy compliance. Also, seemingly legitimate. Like, don't make me defend Google, but you're making me defend Google. Eventually, Google lifted the suspension with no real explanation, just an opaque statement that Google had re-reviewed your account and you can now use it to advertise. So within what time frame? To this day, Google has yet to credibly explain why it suspended the account, let alone the precise moment that Gabbard was trending across Google search and media platforms.
But the thing is that in paragraph 39, that's answered earlier on when she said the terms and conditions of the thing were that, Google could do this whenever they want, and she signed up for it. Here's the terms and conditions. We can suspend or do this to your account for whatever reason, whatever we want. And the fact that they gave her a reason, they said this is the reason why we're doing it, was even more than they had to do. And now she says in 39 that she doesn't know or any credible, what she put as just incredibly explained. But they did. She just explained what they said, and then she just explained that they didn't even have to say that before. So here, it just seems like she's just throwing this stuff out here.
And it's a little worse than that, actually, because they have yet to credibly explain, but they did give an explanation before, billing address and compliance, but they have yet to explain why they suspended it at the exact moment she was trending across Google. No, I mean, now you're making me raise the arguments that Google is going to raise.
Like we told you just said it. That's the reason why.
Dude, your account goes from spending $0 on ad to spending $50,000 in a night. Damn right we're going to suspend it and make sure you want to spend $50,000 in a night. Like there's a good reason. It's sort of like these poker accounts, or even on I can't think of another example right away, but like
the Russians.
Any
I'm just joking.
Activity, they're going to suspend the account and make sure the activity is normal. PayPal.
Yes.
If you get excessive amounts of money in a day on PayPal, they'll freeze your account and make you engaging in laundering. And it's like it's not without any explanation as to why it happened at that moment. That's the exact explanation. You start Googling, you start trending, and you start trying to run $100,000 in ads where you've never run any ads before. Expect some flags to go up internally.
No, but the thing is that also election interference, which we're talking about here, that's one of the reasons why Google and Facebook and all that stuff started doing that, and started because remember with the Russians, they all of a sudden spend $100,000 on advertising, and Facebook and Google were like, yeah, let's do it, let's take that money. And people were saying they weren't being responsible. Now they do it and be responsible, but now she's saying that they shouldn't do it. So it's like, it's like, and I hate even arguing for Google, but they're between a rock and a hard place. You know what I'm saying? It's like we do it with bad people. We don't do it with bad people. What the hell should we do?
And then imagine anybody who has an account and they say, well, Jesus, we didn't realize what we were signing up for in terms of Google ads, and we're not going to pay you $50,000 because everyone was like clicking on Tulsi Gabbard's ad and not directing anything to it in terms of campaigns. It's like, I'm just reading, guys, the whole point of buying Google ads is to direct people who search for her name to her website. Yeah, but you imagine like you have to pay for your Google Ads account at the end of the month, and if it hasn't incurred any charges, then all of a sudden it starts incurring thousands of dollars. They might suspend it and make sure that you want to assume those costs, or that you know what ad campaign you just run, like on Facebook as well. Because admittedly, you can set up budgets on Google, but it's a different auction technique than on Facebook, for example. So you can run up a big bill real quickly, and they might want to make sure that you consented to it and that you're going to honor it.
Yeah.
Let me see if I missed anything here. So, I mean, but the whole basis of the lawsuit is that they suspended her account without explanation the day she was trending, but they didn't shut her anything down. They didn't shut any email down. They just suspended her ad account temporarily until they reestablished it, but didn't give her a satisfactory explanation. That's the cause of action.
Mm-hmm. That's it.
And so we got to 40. Let me just make sure I didn't skip anything else. I got 42, 40. But even though Google couldn't explain why it was silencing, and now they're turning it into like a general thing, it was silencing. Tulsi, a prominent Google critic, right as her presidential. I mean, this is inflammatory drafting to the point where it lacks credibility.
Yeah.
Whatever. Over the course of several hours, Google simply refused to engage with a major presidential candidate with whom it had unilaterally silenced just as she was trending across the internet. Okay.
They've said that a couple of times.
Yeah, a couple. So here we go. And I think this is where we get into it. 41, Google's suspension of the account caused irreparable damage to the campaign. That's going to have to be proven.
Yes. Interest
and searches for Gabbard during the post-date timeframe had skyrocketed. So where is the damage? Like they're saying it caused, get that page number out of there. It caused irreparable harm, but it was still at an all-time high in terms of search. Ads directing searches to her campaign page would have brought Tulsi Gabbard's unique message to millions of Americans. Hypothetical, and it seems like her message was getting out there anyhow, and would have undoubtedly increased the campaign donation Gabbard received. Hypothetical. Presidential primary candidates can receive millions of dollars of donations in the hours shortly after a debate. I don't know about that. I mean, it's interesting, but and while the account was suspended, Gabbard was incapable of communicating to voters through Google or its affiliated websites, by far the most effective and important method of communication in the campaign's arsenal. That's not true. And that will not be true. Presidential primary candidates can receive millions of dollars. No, that's not the right one. While the account was suspended, Gabbard was incapable of communicating to voters through Google or its affiliated websites. That's if that's the case, that should have been fleshed out. But it sounds like she was just incapable of directing ads, which is far different than being able to communicate.
Yeah, and one thing there's this chain of causation that she's trying to put. First, because the fact of the matter is, people have searched and are searching for Tulsi Gabbard, and if they want to find her campaign, the fact that you search and you see Tulsi Gabbard, her campaign and all that stuff is going to come up, and if they're clicking that stuff, it's good. But she's trying to make the argument that because she wasn't able to send these ads out, that she lost all of this money, this potential money. But again, it's you have A, you're trying to add to B, you're trying to add it to C, and here it's just baseless conclusions and allegations. Instead of this is here's the data. This is how much we generally would make. This is how much we make now. This is how much we should make. This is how much everybody else will make. You don't see any of that analysis here. You're just seeing just blatant allegations. Okay, we would have made this money. How do we know that?
She has no basis of comparison because apparently she just created the Google Ads account. If it wasn't like that week, it was that month. And so she wouldn't have any indication of what she otherwise would have gotten had the ads been running. She has no idea. There's no basis of comparison because she just created the Google Ads account by the allegations in the lawsuit.
But the thing is that what I would have done is that there's 16 or 20 other candidates. So you could just go to those. You can even ask Google for the information or get the information. Well, how much money did you raise after the debate? How much money, how much money did they raise from advertising? You could have compiled some of that data and put it in here to show that correlation, because right now she's saying there's some causation, but right now the only thing we have is light correlation.
And Bobcat says, Viva Frei, when an account is suspended, the entire account is suspended, not just the ads. It's how it works. It's how the system is designed to work. Well, so what does that, even if that's true, what does that mean? So does that mean email, she can't send out email, she can't access her Gmail, or does it just mean that she cannot run ads? It doesn't mean that she's not going to come up in searches.
And this is not Tulsi Gabbard. This is just the campaign too.
No, and she's alleging that she was the most searched for candidate. So Google search is still working. That's where I'm having difficulty understanding the actual damages that she's going to be seeking. Again, it's tenuous at best. Okay, these actions by Google did not just prevent Gabbard and the campaign from reaching voters; they also hindered voters from associating with a candidate whose views matched their own. In other words, as evidenced by the massive search hits for Gabbard after the debate, voters were drawn to Gabbard and her views and attempted to associate with her politically online. It seems like but Google's actions towards Tulsi, from suspending the account to disproportionately sending the campaign emails to spam in Gmail.
That's the first time we've heard that allegation, but here it is.
And this is the first time they mentioned anything about going to spam. Not only hindered Gabbard's message, they directly touched on the associational rights of likely voters as well. I know they're getting to some legal issue by using that term of association there, but sending the emails to spam, I am relatively certain that by definition, even though these are political ad campaigns, those emails are spam by definition.
Yeah.
I don't know who's going to disagree with that. Even if you want to get the ads from your political candidate that you've just endorsed, if they're sending out massive amounts of emails based on Google history, I mean, that's spam by definition.
Yeah.
Okay, then we get into Google's political support of its policy champions. Okay, Google's stated mission is to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. According to Google, people around the world turn to the search for information on about topics. Okay, we know what Google is. We know that. Which one has the "Do No Evil" slogan? Was that YouTube or was that Google?
I'm not even sure. I thought it was a doctor, like do no harm.
Yeah, but one of them definitely had "Do No Evil." Yeah. Okay, so I just got distracted in there. Oh, here, if they judge it as spam, are all political email spam. Any email targeting someone without their consent or
It's
without
spam.
their specific request is spam by definition. You have to agree to receive it, but I think it's still then even spam, and you have to accept it specifically. We have
And don't forget what Tulsi Gabbard was trying to do. She was trying to target the people who are searching for her. So people would search for her name, and she was trying to send them emails to say, "Hey, give to my campaign." So that's a definition of spam. She wanted to spam those people who are searching for her in those targeted ads.
Yeah, I mean it's spam. It's spam, and it was people Googling for her and not people emailing her directly and looking to connect. I mean, they could find her website and email her and subscribe and join through the website. No, she was deliberately trying to target people who were searching for her based on their search patterns on Google, which there's nothing wrong with it, but you can understand why Google might have suspended an account, or you can understand why Google might have done what they did, or might have done what they're alleged to have done.
Alleged.
45. But this mission is not executed equally. Google does not treat all political viewpoints equally. The company has been criticized by many on the right for censoring content that favors conservative viewpoints. So this is where I'm wondering if like Tulsi's not suggesting that she's conservative. And I don't mean that in any political accusatory way, but it's like, this is where it gets interesting. It's like, yeah, people on the right have been complaining about big tech censorship for a long time. Tulsi's on the left and saying that she's being affected by that same censorship, or the political censorship, which doesn't make any sense because she's on the exact opposite viewpoint of those who have been complaining about it for a long time.
And Elizabeth Warren is killing these companies worse than she is, and she's not complaining. You know what I mean? Wow. So it's a little, I think it's a little disingenuous, but it is what it is.
And it says, simply put, Google supports viewpoints, political causes, and candidates that favor its policy positions over those that do not. Maybe. Oh, and then we get into the campaign donors.
Yeah.
So Google affiliated donors gave $800,000 to Barack Obama. This is when I started tuning out of this lawsuit like big time, because
she's saying that because Google and the people in the company give to Democrats, that's the reason why. And she's a Democrat, so I don't understand this argument. She even talks about Hillary Clinton, how people were giving to Hillary Clinton. It's crazy.
No, we've I think if anybody watches Project Veritas videos and is familiar with them, we know what has been leaked or disclosed to go on inside. We know believe it that there's political bias, but in theory it should be on that side based on all of the stuff that's been leaked in undercover reporting. So she's complaining. The argument is that they discriminate against people who don't share their viewpoints. They might support candidates. But anyways, all of this is a precursor to a wrong that we have not yet seen was committed. Let's skip it. I mean, we'll skip it. We know the basis of the lawsuit. That's it. And then we're going to some more pleading and some more argumentation. What was the next? Do you have any paragraphs you wanted to point out there?
No, actually, the rest of this is just, to be honest with you, I have in my notes, the rest of this is just junk until we get to the actual cause of action. It's like, inexcusable action. It's just really just them pontificating on
yeah, well, that's actually, I just skipped over that. That's one I wanted to get to. The government's, where was it?
It's are you talking about page 18, the government's inexcusable action? Yeah.
Okay, so hold on. Let's just, the government's inexcusable inaction in ceding the internet to Google.
Oh my God.
Notably, Google did not assent to its position as a central arbiter of political speech in a vacuum. Instead, the United States government inexcusable inaction has ceded control of the internet, a public forum for all to express their opinions, to private companies like Google. I mean, that's arguable in the sense that I don't know. I mean, even I'm not pro big tech, and maybe there's no but to that. There's a big problem. I don't think the government ceded anything to Google. I think Google slowly rose up and usurped that vacuum. I mean, the internet might have been created by the government to some extent, but Google certainly was a private enterprise that rose to the top of it because of its efficiency and awesomeness.
Well, it's like, I don't know if the story of AT&T. AT&T, they set up some phone wires, put all the lines down, and to make a phone call, you had to use AT&T service, and the government said eventually being able to call somebody was such a valuable thing in the United States. Think about the president to make a phone call. He had to use AT&T's line where they said AT&T is too big. They're a monopoly. We have to break them up. She's making the argument, or this lawsuit's making the argument that Google is now like AT&T. And I don't know if that's true. Even though people use Google, there's like I think over 100 other search engines that you could use that are just as good as Google, but most people just use Google because of habit. So is this, is Google really has that monopoly, or it's just preferred that people use it, because people do have other options other than Google.
Yeah. No, it says Tulsi is supported by a lot of middle left that Google calls alt-right. Yeah, but this is not a political attack on Tulsi. It's just this lawsuit either has a legal basis or it doesn't, and it's either well supported or it's not. Anyway, we've seen the crux of it, people. So that's as good and as much as the lawsuit has to offer in terms of supporting this claim. I had one paragraph at 62 where I said good, because I think that was the only paragraph where I think there was a legitimate basis for a claim. In fact, Gabbard's account is not the first election advertising that Google has interfered with. For example, June 2018, Google announced that it would no longer sell political ads for local races in Washington state. Yet in reality, Google continued to sell such ads, thousands of dollars worth, in fact, but only to certain campaigns. Okay. Who, what, when, why, where? I mean, that seems, Nate, to me, if there was evidence that they were breaking the rules for some but not for others, that would be relevant to allege, and not just with four italicized, emphasized words.
Yeah, but they even go to how Google has paid. But again, this is saying, well, Google was bad in this particular place in Washington. But now, how is she linking that? Because now this is what I call propensity evidence. They did something bad in the past. That means they have done something bad now. And that's what the court, that's how the court, I think, was going to look at this. Like, okay, they did something bad in Washington state, but what does it have to do with what's going on now, what you're alleging? Can you prove that they did the same thing to you as you're alleging that they did in Washington state?
Yeah, well, that was like the one of the biggest elements that I thought, like, yes, if there's hard evidence that they are breaking the rules for some candidates and not for others, that might lend credibility to the idea that they are punishing some candidates or some campaigns over others. But that's it. And then they move on from it. Like, in short, after we say they were breaking the rules only for certain campaigns, don't mention who, what, when, why, or how. In short, Google's alleged ban on ads for local races in Washington state was selectively enforced. The misconduct ultimately resulted in the Washington State Attorney General prosecuting Google, and Google settled the case, agreeing to pay. Okay, so it happened before. We have no other further information as to who they were actually favoring or penalizing, and then we move on.
I bet you if they were penalizing, and this whole thing about Washington State, I'm assuming that it wasn't someone favorable to the lawsuit. Like, in other words, this may have been the Republicans who they were favoring in this instance, and not the Democrat. That's why she hasn't mentioned who actually was. Again, I haven't looked into it, but that's kind of because if this supported her claim that they were targeting conservatives and not Democrats, then I would suspect that would be here. But I don't think that the narrative here is not what she wants it to be.
So, and here, Tony Nieves says, I think the allegation is to establish a baseline that Google has interfered before. Well, that's what the allegation is for, but it doesn't even do that. It doesn't make any evidence. First of all, typically you don't make evidence of other lawsuits within another lawsuit. But even if that were the case, to prove that they had done something bad in the past, it doesn't even explain to what extent, in what context, to which party they were penalizing. And so it's like throwing spaghetti on the wall. I don't know what they're trying to prove with it. I don't think they did successfully prove anything with it, because there's no material allegations that have been proven or that are even susceptible of proof, because there's nothing specific enough to even make evidence of. It's just trying to show some sort of character flaw or past conduct without even alleging enough to prove that past conduct. It's
literally propensity evidence, but also it's even worse than that, because again, Google was sued and fined under Washington state law. We're in California, if even if that's the case, it may be illegal in Washington, but it may not be illegal in California. So again, it's that's the problem when you start having these type of just allegations thrown out there, because again, even if this is true, it may just be irrelevant because it was illegal in Washington, but it may not be illegal we were talking about California.
So Per Johansson says, Viva, do you think this was written with the intent to get soundbite for the media, or was the best they could do for the Kurt?
I know came in late, but yes.
So Nate, one thing we've never discussed: when the lawsuit gets dismissed, let's just say they file a motion a Rule 12B. It would be 12B, right?
12B6, yeah, 12B6. I think.
So let's just say they file that motion. It gets dismissed, and do they get dismissed with costs? Do they have to pay the legal fees of the other party typically, or not generally?
Again, well, the American rule is that everybody who brings, if you bring your, everybody pays their own costs. That's the American rule in general, except if it's a real frivolous lawsuit. And the last time, well, something that most people may notice, what's her name, Stormy Daniels and Trump.
Yeah,
when Stormy Daniels sued Trump for defamation, and the judge threw it out because it was BS. So what he did was he said it was a frivolous lawsuit, and then made her pay Trump's legal fees for bringing in a BS lawsuit. So that could happen, but it all depends if they find this lawsuit to be BS.
Okay, but that would paying the other legal fees, the other party's legal fees, would be the exception, not the rule.
Yes,
okay.
It's literally called the American rule when it comes to that. There's American rule and there's like a European rule, but the American rule is each side pay costs, and the European rule is loser pays.
Okay, and in Quebec, incidentally, to be ordered to pay the other party's legal fees is like the most exceptional thing. It has to be like outlandishly frivolous, abusive, dilatory, or whatever. And it only happens exceptionally. So all that to say, per Johansson, what do you think, Nate? This could cost a draft $15,000.
It all depends. To be honest with you, this could have been drafted by some law students. It's really that bad. Like if you pay $15,000 for that, then I'm in the wrong business, because I could have drafted something better than this, and I didn't even have to hear any of these facts. You know what I'm saying? So
let's just say it costs $15,000 to file this lawsuit. You would only get declared. You would only be ordered to pay the other party's legal fees. Even if they filed a Rule 12, that would be a relatively summary motion to dismiss. So maybe all in all, worst case scenario, it would cost you $50,000. I bet she's spending $50,000 on Google AdWords the night of her election. This is better publicity than any of those AdWords got. But I don't think this was a publicity stunt, and there's no qualification. I think she believes in it. I think it's going to be very difficult to prove, and I think her worst case scenario is file the lawsuit. If it gets dismissed, okay, too bad. If it doesn't, all the better. I get to depose some people from Google and get to ask some questions. And if it gets dismissed on the merits, at least I've had my day in court. And in the meantime, at least we're discussing me from a cynical perspective and Google from a political perspective.
Yeah, she's been on the news cycle for this reason. She's been in that rotation. So we're talking about Tulsi Gabbard. This lawsuit has already paid dividends.
Oh yeah, there's no pun intended. This was. I would have never read it. People were like, consistently saying, do this one, especially since we did the Devin Nunes lawsuit. They said you have to do Tulsi Gabbard. Devin Nunes, compared to this, night and day. And I still think Nunes has some problems with this lawsuit. Okay, so let's do the counts. I mean, we'll go through them quickly. Violations of the First Amendment and the Constitution. I mean, we've touched on it. The allegation is that Google is going to be subject to the First Amendment by virtue of its de facto monopoly.
Yeah. Well, again, like in my notes, if you go back to the PragerU ruling, when PragerU sued Google and YouTube for the same thing, it literally almost was the exact same argument that Google and YouTube are performing exclusive public function, a traditional public function that generally the state would do. But now since Google is doing it, Google should be held to First Amendment restrictions, just like the federal government or the state government would. And in legal precedent, some of those activities that would subject a private corporation to the constitutional restraints are, like, say, if they had a police force or a fire department, or if they controlled your water or electricity or sanitation. Those things are just so valuable to the public good. Like fear. We have Con Edison in New York. Con Edison started saying, "I don't want black people to have electricity." That would be, it would affect people's lives in such a meaningful way that constitutional restraints are against it because of the importance of that product. Now, some people are saying that Google's search engine and YouTube are important, but are they as important as, let's say, electricity or water or even a police force? I don't think it is, but that's the argument that this lawsuit is trying to make, that Google is a public entity because what they do is so important to the public sector.
So and that part I could agree with, and that part I could even get behind Tulsi on, if what they were doing was suspending her Google, or not just her ad accounts, but rather her Google accounts. When they say they were suspending associated accounts, I don't even know what associated accounts means. What other accounts are associated with Google other than your email and your ad accounts? I mean, I don't want to be ignorant, but like, I'm not even sure what they're talking about. But this wasn't a case like on YouTube shutting down channels, in and of themselves, which deprives them of their ability to even speak on that public square of YouTube. It wasn't like Twitter suspending accounts or shadow banning. This is just saying you can't run ads. Now, we're going to get into it because we get into the Unruh Act where it says they're offering services and they can't discriminate as to who they offer commercial services to based on the list in the Unruh Act, which we'll get to. Mm-hmm. But other than that, I mean, this wasn't a question of crippling her or paralyzing her or shutting down her accounts, preventing her from corresponding. It was just not being able to run targeted ads by the sounds of it for one day. And sending spam emails. That's
but the thing is that because Google is a private corporation, the First Amendment doesn't apply. And again, these arguments that she made in this first count are the same identical arguments that were made in Prager's lawsuit, and the judge dismissed them in Prager, and the judge is probably going to dismiss them here because it's just not enough. Don't get me wrong, Google has a lot of power, but are people convinced that they have so much power that they are essentially a public entity? And I don't think so. I just don't think so.
I could buy it. But then I would have to be more convinced about the violation to Tulsi's First Amendment rights. Like it seems to me, I know there's the issue about equal access to services, but this is not suppressing freedom of speech by even temporarily suspending someone's ad account. That's where I have the difficulty even accepting it. I think Google's pretty much a public square, and they certainly benefit from infrastructure that was set up and by the government, by subsidies, by financing. I could accept that they are an effective monopoly, and they should not be able to say we're not giving email accounts to conservatives or libertarians or Democrats, or they're saying we're not allowing people who support. I don't want to use any inflammatory politicians.
I understand.
They say like, okay, we're not going to any email that has these words in it. We're not going to send. We're going to send it to spam. That I can understand. But this was just basically saying she's running ads, targeted ads, and they're treating her spam emails like spam by sending them to the spam box. And she thinks that violates her First Amendment rights. I don't believe it. I have trouble even accepting it.
And let's not also forget too, Google does it. Google could, let's say she comes to Google and says, I want to run an ad account. And they say, well, we don't want you. We're denying you. We don't want you to run ad account. We just don't like Tulsi Gabbard. We don't like her message. We just don't want to associate her with an ad account. You can have your email, you can have whatever, but we're not going to associate with you with an ad account. I don't see how you can fault Google for doing that. You know what I mean? I don't see. Google should have the right to say no to someone, and Tulsi Gabbard this lawsuit is saying Google essentially doesn't have the right to say no. They have to say yes to everybody.
And not even that actually, but I mean in the States, and this I maybe should have looked this up prior, but do you have anti-spam laws on the internet?
I believe so. Yeah.
We definitely have them in Canada where you have to opt in to spam, and I get these emails from law firms, and they make sure that they're compliant with the anti-spam legislation. So like Google might even be doing this to be compliant with other legislation, and especially the anti-spam legislation, but I don't know what it is in the States. But that would be my reflex, is like by suspending spam emails and by suspending accounts that are deliberately targeting people based on their search patterns or search histories, they might even be effectively being compliant with legislation. And I'm not sure that that's not the case.
That's true. Yeah, that's an interesting point.
Yeah, that's that I should look into, because I think that if that's true, and I suspect that might be a big problem, because that'll be a big defense. El Rojo Grande says, thank you very much, El Rojo, by the way. Are you guys aware of Steven Crowder's video proving Google's is selectively deranking Tulsi when her name trends? We talked about. I'll finish the thing. Does it help her case at all? It's only in the US. If you use a VPN, it disappears. Love your content. Keep at it. Thank you very much. First of all. Second of all, we did do it. It was earlier on in the discussion, but I think there are flaws with these things. And I think I'm discovering that there are flaws even with my own tests that I'm running for YouTube, for example. A lot of people do complain that they're being censored, or that they're being deranked, and they say my channel and my videos no longer come up on recommended. If you look for my name, the videos don't come up. And there are too many variables where it seems that even if you run the tests, and I'm thinking of one that Tim Poole suggested, I ran the words and I got the videos. And so I don't know if it like depends on where you're searching from, if it has to do with running it through a VPN. But like, I haven't been able to replicate or necessarily get the same results. I didn't see Crowder's video on this, but there are too many variables to explain something or maybe make the test not scientific to begin with.
Well, I saw Crowder's video, but then if you watch, there are other videos out there, and I actually did the search myself, where if you search all the Democratic candidates, the ones, especially the ones who've been in the news, you'll see the rankings are exactly the same. If you do the same process that he did, then you'll do it, because he went to incognito mode. If you do it in incognito mode, then you go into regular mode, you can see the differences, and they are the same for all the candidates. Because really what essentially it's doing is that any of the news coverage that comes up, those would be the first things that come up, then the channel comes up, and that happens for each one of the candidates. So it was flawed, but I understood what he was trying to say. Because and let me just be clear. We all know there is a political bias when it comes to Google and YouTube for conservative. To say it's not would just be pulling the wool over our eyes. There is. So
there is, to the point where I don't want to get in trouble with this stream, but the point where when Project Veritas comes out with their videos, whatever, I mean, you can accuse it of selective editing, you can accuse them of improper journalism. But the funny thing is, like, when things do trend and don't trend, and I posted a tweet about from YouTube where they said, we're going to make sure that half of the stuff on the trending page is coming from actual content creators. And I said, if you're going to make sure that half of what's trending is coming from content creators, who's choosing what the other half of what is trending is? And it's curated, it's handpicked, it's deliberately selected. And we know of the bias. It's just, it is what it is. It's always been that way. It's just like everybody's sort of learning about it now with freedom of information on the internet. It's the internet's a beautiful thing.
Have you ever seen a trending video that was negative to YouTube?
I'm trying to think. No,
I've never seen one.
No, and I've seen trending videos that have no business being on trending, except someone. It's marketing. There's no question they're being paid to have their videos trend for a few days, and that's the publicity they get. There's no question, because when they state that they're going to make sure that half of the trending is organic, it means that the other half of the trending is not. And that's the biggest argument as far as I'm ever concerned. And I tweeted it, and I made a video on it. It didn't get trending. That is an admission that YouTube is curating its content to the point where we've had this argument about the Section 230 immunity. They are curating content, and there's no question about it anymore. And they should potentially have whatever legal consequences arise from that.
But now for the count one, I assume count one's going to be dismissed, and I think count one's going to be dismissed because it's the PragerU argument, and if when they respond, they're going to just cite PragerU. We literally it was in California too, the Ninth Circuit, which we're in too. So I think count one is just going to be dismissed because they're just not. They're going to say they're not a government entity. Do you agree?
No, for sure. And not just that, but if we go to, let me just fade out the comment overlay. Sorry, if I forgot that there's a comment overlaid, it's only because I lost it. Paragraph 75, Google's wrongful actions were taken with oppression, fraud, malice. These actions were arbitrary and capricious. They were taken as part of Google's normal course of business. They were taken as part of Google's normal course of business, effectuated through both Google-designed algorithms and Google employees and agents. I mean, it takes more than saying something to make it true. And if it's a one-off, from all that we have is it was a one-off, it's a big leap to say it was a one-off on June 28th and maybe even June 29th, and maybe we didn't get a good answer, to taken with oppression, fraud, malice. These actions were arbitrary and capricious. Those are big statements. They have to be proven. But no, I think Google's defenses are going to be great on the merits, and I say great as in substantive. The only question is this even going to sustain if and when has there been a motion to dismiss?
I don't know. This is the first time I'm seeing this suit, but I can see one coming up. I would. It's literally going to be the same, because they just had the people who wrote the one for, what's it called? I keep saying, for the one for PragerU, it's probably like, let's just take that and just put Tulsi Gabbard on it and send it in. There it is. I think, and for this, I'm predicting what's going to happen. It's going to be dismissed out of federal court, because the two federal claims are going to be dismissed for the reasons we'll go through now. And the state claims are going to be left, and they're going to say, go to state court and have your claims read out. And the same thing like PragerU is doing. So we'll see.
Absolutely. That's my prediction as well. The only claim that I could see being remotely tenable is the violations of the Unruh Act, which will be state law. And that's where it's going to be. That's where it's going to end up. Someone said nothing. They don't claim platforms. There was a discussion about whether or not Section 230 distinguishes between platforms and publishers. Nate,
Yes.
we're going to have to do a video on that because on that specific topic. So we won't get into it now. But they provide immunity to people who
Platforms. Yeah, not publishers. Publishers are newspapers. Platforms are pass-throughs.
So okay, and we'll do a separate live one day, 'cause it's that question is going to come up to the news again sooner than later. Count 2, California Constitution, Article 1, Section 2. The campaign realleges blah blah blah. Article 1, Section 2 of the California Constitution protects the liberty of speech and association, especially in public, quasi-public, and limited public spaces. Google has created and maintained a public forum for the public to express and exchange views and ideas, and we know about this. Okay, let's just get to the substance of this. Paragraph 80, Google has restricted the campaign's political speech based on a pretext and has used its terms of use and subjective criteria to discriminate against plaintiff.
See that I hate delving in but for those of you who don't know, every state in the United States has a constitution, a state constitution that gives the powers to both the executive and on all the 3 branches. And they have to have a Republican form of government, which is more or less the 3 branches that we're talking about: courts, legislature, and executive. Now, in most state constitutions, what they've done is just, especially ones that were after the original 13 colonies, they kind of just took the federal constitution and just kind of replicated that. We have the same thing and the same rights. So you may have a freedom of speech right under state law, and you have the one under federal law. So sometimes if you're suing for a free speech issue, you'll have both claims: the claims under the federal constitution and then the claims under the state constitution. And generally, states are more expansive with their rights. They can't go less than the federal government, but they can give more. And some states may even give private parties the ability of freedom of speech. But it really depends. So here, it seems like what they're doing is saying, okay, even if you don't give us the federal courts of action, we still have the state courts of action of the free speech. I hope I explained that well.
That's clear enough. I mean, and again, you get into this paragraph 83. Google's wrongful actions were taken with oppression, fraud, and malice. Now, for anybody who's wondering, these are the elements that have to be proven in order to incur liability. You have to prove that it was oppressive, fraudulent, and malicious. The problem is those are the conclusions that we're supposed to interpret the actions by, but the only allegations to actions are that the Google Ads account was suspended for 1 or 2 days, and they didn't get an answer they liked, even though they got an answer which was violation of terms of what was it? It was verifying the account and terms of service. So they got the explanation. To go from that explanation to conclude that it was oppressive, fraudulent, and malicious, I mean that's the leap that you can only make if you are the person believing what you're saying, and there's no allegations to support it.
So are you saying that this claim hasn't been sufficiently alleged where you would dismiss it for failure to state a claim?
I would say that, I mean, I would never dismiss for failure to state a claim just because of my provincial upbringing, because even once you make this allegation, it was done with oppression, fraud, and malice. Okay, well, we'll have to go to trial and see if you can make evidence of it. But now that I can see how, especially the federal courts, actually grant these motions to dismiss for failure to state a claim, I was like, yeah, okay, good. Hey, it's nice it was oppressive, fraudulent, and malicious. The only facts you've alleged are that they closed your account because you violated the terms of service, which you agree they could do at any time. Yeah, I'd dismiss it.
Yeah, but then you failed to state a claim that you can recover from. Yeah, here are your allegations, and if they're true, then guess what? You can't win because you have.
That's it. You take the allegations for granted. You sign the terms of service. The terms of service said they can suspend your account for X, Y, and Z. They suspended it for X, Y, and Z. Tough noogies. You have to show that it was wrongfully done.
I can't believe I got you to say that they failed to state a claim. There we go.
No, under American law, I still think I read the conclusions. I would dismiss it on the merits. I'd give them their day in court. But count 3 is the only one that I can see sticking. Yeah. California Unruh Civil Rights Act, and this is an interesting one. But this is going to bring up the same question we had in PragerU, which was the Unruh Act does not provide as a basis of discrimination political discrimination.
Exactly.
So let's see. 85 says the campaign realleges all the other paragraphs. Okay, fine. 86. Google hosts business establishments under the Unruh Civil Rights Act, California, whatever. It grants the public unrestricted access to Google Ads for commercial reasons, et cetera, et cetera. Despite their promises of neutrality and diversity of viewpoints, Google engages in a pattern of practice of intentional discrimination in the provision of its services, including discrimination against and censoring the campaign's speech based not on the content of the censored speech, but on the campaign's political identity and viewpoint. And
but now, but now here, this is why I think this is going to be dismissed. And you may disagree. I believe Google's response is going to be, she can't have it both ways. She's her whole complaint earlier saying about discrimination against conservatives, and she's kind of this quasi-conservative, right? And because she's been bad to Google, they're going to be bad to her. So that's where she's putting herself. She's more or less saying, they treat me like a conservative Republican, and these are all the bad things they've done. But then on the other side, Google can come and say, well, look at Elizabeth Warren, look at all these other people who are saying break us up, who are saying make us pay more taxes,
and they're not getting penalized,
and they're not getting and also Tulsi Gabbard is a Democrat, So
it's interesting. First of all, I'm going to thank Ed Morales. Thank you very much. No, Nate. So that I don't know. I don't care about if it's inconsistent as the reasons for which they're discriminating against her. I would say even if they discriminated against her because she says, I hate Google and I want to run an ad on Google saying Google is the devil. And they say, we won't run that ad because it's critical of us, but we'll run ads that are, favorable of us. That I don't care if it's political. I don't care if you qualify it as political in the, the right versus the left, or just being discriminated based on the political viewpoint. I understand what they're saying, and they're saying that Google is deliberately targeting her. Whether or not they target other people, they're targeting her because of what she has to say against Google, and therefore they're violating the Unruh Act. That might hold water. Where it becomes a problem, and you'll tell me when we had this discussion. I think we did it previously, but the Unruh Act doesn't provide for political basis for discrimination. So they go with race, creed, religion, sexual orientation, a bunch of stuff, but they don't provide for political ideology. And so then the question is going to be, is the spirit of the Unruh Act to prohibit all forms of discrimination or just the enumerated ones?
Well, but generally, and I haven't looked at the Unruh Act. I'm not sure if they have a catch-all, because a lot of times these things don't have a catch-all, or other whatever. But I know a lot of these. I believe the Unruh Act has the enumerated ones, and if it's not listed there, then it just usually doesn't work out. Yeah, I think you can make an argument though, because the law does change. The law does change. You can make an argument. But like for instance, here in the United States, abortion is not in the Constitution. Somebody made an argument, the court read it in there, so it's possible. But right now, I don't think, and especially with PragerU and a couple of other cases that I saw with the Unruh Act, with this whole political discrimination, it hasn't flown. This judge would actually have to go against years and years of precedent to make it stick for the Unruh Act. You know what I mean? It would have to go through like years of precedent from both the California Supreme Court, from the federal. This judge would have to go out on a limb to do this.
Well, go on a limb on the merits. The question is, would it even survive a summary dismissal?
I'm saying just to survive the summary dismissal, this judge will have to go against years worth of precedent. The most concerning is the PragerU precedent, and then the other precedent that says that this wouldn't qualify.
Okay, very interesting. Now, I think if I wouldn't bet against this one surviving a motion to dismiss, unlike the Nicholas Salmon, which I'm still. Oh, incidentally, with Nicholas Salmon, apparently, Nate, what did I say? I sent you something. They filed a
motion to re-argue.
Say it again.
Motion to re-argue.
Motion to re-argue.
Was it re-argue or motion to reconsider?
Motion to reconsider. It was a motion to reconsider.
Yeah.
Basically asking the same judge to reconsider the judgment that they rendered. So they haven't filed an appeal. They filed apparently a motion to reconsider. But anyways, I'm still, that one's going to hurt me for a while. That one's going to sting. If they win against CNN, it might make up for the Washington Post, but we'll see. Okay, well, I think we've milked this thing for what we can get that's useful out of it.
Yeah. Well, the Latham Act is something interesting too. That's the only other federal.
Okay, here we go.
That's count 6.
Yeah. And explain to me what the Lanham Act is. I mean, I know of it, but explain what it is.
Well, it's about commerce and false advertising. It's really just about if you're doing commerce and you make fault, say things or do things that are factually incorrect, to more or less defraud people into giving you money or to make people believe something that's not true, then this gives people a way to be able to sue in federal court so you can win. So what Tulsi Gabbard is alleging is that Google advertises itself as a forum that's open to expression for diverse speakers. Now, that's fine, but she's saying by them saying that they are doing that and then doing what they're doing to her by silencing her speech, by not giving her, by closing her account, that they're going against their own terms of service by saying, we're open to these diverse speakers and all this other stuff. But on the back end, they're not. They're actually, and that's the fraud that they're committing, the false advertisement for the Latham Act. But PragerU had to deal with the same issue when it came to the PragerU case. And in PragerU, what they did, they said, okay, well, on YouTube's official blog, it says almost identical the same thing. YouTube is a diverse collection of self-expressive people and opportunity to share their voices. So YouTube were saying the same thing in the PragerU, and PragerU said, well, that's false advertising. And the court said, no, it's not false advertising. It's mere puffery and therefore not actionable. And I think this court's going to say the same thing here, that this is puffery. This is a statement that is extremely unlikely to induce consumer reliance, or it's just so vague that it's not capable of being proved to be false, which one of the requirements of the Latham Act is that you have to prove that the statement was false. So it seems like this is going to be dismissed under the same reasons why it was dismissed in the PragerU case.
Well, it's interesting. You think could learn from the mistakes of others, but we'll see what happens if the goal is to actually go the distance with this.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think this is. I'm just being honest with you. I like Tulsi. I actually think she's one of the. If I was going to vote for a Democrat, I would like it to be Tulsi, because I think she has enough where I like her history and all this other stuff, but I think this lawsuit doesn't do her well. I really don't. But I think overall this lawsuit is just garbage, to be honest with you. It just is. It just I just got to call it how I see it. It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. We've which ones have we seen? That we've done PragerU, we've done Sandman, we've done Nunes, and all those are good. Nunes is
Nunes's mom. Nunes's cow is going to get dismissed, but Nunes's mom might not get dismissed.
Yeah. Nunes, even though it's a funny lawsuit, it wasn't just like a throw. This is a throwaway. This to me seems to be.
Well, that's like this. This seems to be based on an event that lasted 1 or 2 days maximum. Devin Nunes lasted a long time and was serious. I mean, there was some serious stuff going on in there in terms of disinformation and the psychological trauma as to whether or not Twitter can be held responsible is another issue, and whether or not, as a running member of Congress, he's entitled to not have his feelings hurt. But don't forget, he's a public figure, and don't forget how the law in the United States treats public figures versus private figures. Do you guys have that there in Canada? Yeah, we have a different standard for public figures. I don't know that we have a limited purpose public figure like you have in the States, but we definitely have a different standard for defamation as relates to public figures, different thresholds for what's acceptable news, but we have limits.
Because here it's like, if you're a public figure, it's like almost impossible.
And especially a public figure running for office, and it's not like running for office. I mean, it's anyhow. I mean, certainly there have been, even as badly as Nunes was treated, there have been other celebrities and other public figures who have been treated even worse that I suspect still have no claims. But
I got my video coming up. I have the lawsuit. Well, he was going to file, but he's not going to file. Stevie Wonder. The National Enquirer had a story about Stevie Wonder being able to see, like he was not blind anymore, and Stevie Wonder could not sue because he's a public figure, and he couldn't prove that he would not be able to prove that they knew that the story was actually false. So
that's phenomenal.
Crazy. It's crazy.
I mean, that is as much of a conspiracy theory as humanly possible. That Stevie Wonder could see all along.
Yes.
Look into Turner versus Driver, a First Amendment activist that was detained and sued, went to the Fifth Circuit of Appeals. I'll have a look.
I'll check that out.
Okay, now so listen, we've done Tulsi Gabbard. Let's talk about Jussie Smollett before we go anywhere, because there's so much. There was so much. What just happened?
Oh my God.
Oh my goodness, I can't even remember where I wanted to go with this.
Well, wasn't he? Well, he was his motion was dismissed, so now he's
motion was dismissed.
Yeah.
Oh my good God, I'm not remember what I wanted to talk about.
No, hold on, but before, because I know some of your viewers are going to hate me for this. They're going to hate me. They're going to be like, I hate this man, Nate Broady. He's the left-leaning maniac. I hate him. But I got to say this. Listen, I was a prosecutor, and I dealt with cases in which people made false reports and people did this type of thing. And when I first saw I like to call him Juicy Smollett, like Dave Chappelle says it. But what happens is, essentially, we have somebody who, and I'll even say, maybe you can even call it fraud, but filed a false police report, made up this story, and again, allegedly, and and got caught, and now got fined that he filed a false police report. Now you're talking about a first-time offender. He was a pillar.
Someone's going to cut you off there because I got in trouble for that. Apparently, he was arrested for providing a false name under a DUI 10 years earlier. Apparently, he was not a first-time offender. From what I was repeatedly,
but I'll even give you that. 10 years ago, even though usually you get like this, like a short amount of time that these things, but 10 years ago he gave a false name. I would still consider him not a repeat offender. That he's a low-level offender. Maybe had a little DWI 10 years ago. Like in my evaluation of everything, he's not getting any jail time. He's not, he may have to pay some restitution, which $10,000. And in New York, what we do is we give what they call ACDs. We call them adjournments and contemplation of dismissal. I've given out hundreds of them. And what they mean is that you come in and you've committed a misdemeanor like this. Then I'll say, okay, well, if you're good for 6 months and you don't do anything, then what you would do is you just pay your fine, which would be something minimal. And then you would go and, and would be dismissed without any charges. You would have no criminal record. You would have nothing. And it's a way for if somebody has it's like a one-time thing. It's looking like this is what they did here, but I think the celebrity and everything around it, and the fact that he came out afterwards talking about he's innocent, that really threw everybody off because he wasn't innocent. And I think the balls of this guy to come out and say he's innocent after he just got this sweetheart deal was messed up. But I will say this: I've given people like that deals before, and it wasn't because he was a celebrity. It was just because of the facts in front of me. If they gave him jail time or prosecuted him for felonies, they would have been treating him differently than they treated everyone else.
This is the question, and I know first of all, this happens to be what I think as well. Faking a racist or faking any crime based on what would otherwise make it a hate crime. Yeah, should be treated more severely than just faking any crime or fabricating, a false statement. I think the issue with this is the consequences for what he was, for what he did ostensibly, which was, fabricate a racist, homophobic hate crime, could have been, devastating for the nation as a whole. And if certain crimes are treated more severely because they're racially motivated, so should the fabrication of those crimes. And that's why I said, like, even if it was his first time doing it, I would be prepared to live in a world where, if a racially motivated crime is treated more severely in terms of punishment, so should a racially motivated hoax. Fair enough. And so that's the thing. It's like, when you say, I would be curious if you had ever been in a situation where it was a question of giving the pretrial diversion benefit to someone who had faked a racist crime. Like that's where the distinction is. Doing it for any crime is one thing, but for that type of crime.
I've had it happen for someone who faked a rape allegation, and what happened was it was a young lady. They were in a party. She had slept with her. It was the guy was a basketball star, and so she sleeps with him. It happens to be her friend's boyfriend, and the girlfriend goes upstairs into the room, sees them together. She says he raped me. So during our investigation, we found out that the story was a lie. And she admitted that the story was a lie. So there it was, false police report. This could have been real damaging to him for false police report. We hit her with all the charges, and then we did the whole ACD thing, saying, okay, well, if it's good for 6 months, understand that this was wrong, and that's generally the way you handle things like that, because you it's not like you're saying you did nothing wrong, but you're understanding that when someone does something like this, they haven't destroyed the world. What they've done is they've done a crime, and you would treat that crime just like you would treat any other crime. Now, I do agree. Jussie Smollett shouldn't have come. Jussie Smollett.
You're actually doing it non-ironically now.
but he should But he should. I think it's hard for me as a former prosecutor to say they were too lenient on him, because I know that with those facts that I got, without the news, if you take out the news publicity and who he was and just said, if this was just some regular guy who did this and wasn't covered on the news, would he get jail time? And I would say no, he probably would. Now, if we're saying because he's a celebrity, he should get jail time, then you run the risk of saying we're treating him differently now because he is a celebrity than he's not. So
no, it's fair. It's fair enough. It's but so I mean, that was the interesting thing, is that the motion to dismiss was denied. I got in trouble because people were saying it's not dismissed, it's denied, but I have seen both terms used in the States.
I use that too. I say dismissed too, and I deal with so many motions to dismiss.
Well, no, I think both terms are totally acceptable. It just depends on the type of motion. But so some people were saying, I hope the city takes this to court. Don't let him off the hook unless he admits guilt and writes a letter of apology. And so one of the things I said in my follow-up video was, if he pays all the amounts owing, if he just says, "Here, city, here's $130,000, here's interest, court costs, and here are your legal fees,"
game over.
Game over. Like, they can't force him to go to trial. They can't ask him for something that they're not asking him for in his. So at any given point,
up to go to trial for.
Say it again.
I said there would be nothing to go to trial for. Paying the money, yeah.
So people saying like the city shouldn't settle, but really, Jussie at any point can pay everything they're asking for and then avoid trial, avoid depositions, avoid going on with this case. And I would imagine he has the money. Not that that's a ton of money, but I would imagine he could come up with that money easily if it gets to that point.
Listen, he should have paid this thing 1, 2, 3. It should have been. I'm just being. He's getting $100,000 an episode. He's got like something for $5 million in the bank. You pay that money, you call it a day. That's it. 1, 2, 3.
Viva and Ezra Levant should do Vlawg. So I have been investing a little bit of time in my Rebel News lawsuits in the hopes that Ezra Levant will do a live stream so I can ask him some more questions on that. That's pure Canadian news about how our stuff is out. So yeah, everyone, can you tweet Ezra Levant, tweet him my videos, and we'll see if we can get a live stream with him going. That would be great. There was that issue. He can settle it whenever he wants. Nobody's going to like it, but he can just make the lawsuit go away by paying everything they're asking. The other issue, some people. So and this is another thing that people are asking, and it's an interesting discussion. Is like. Was it orchestrated was it a politically orchestrated crime, or did politicians just jump in on it once they saw a window of opportunity to promote their agendas and to promote their own careers? And that's where there's been a lot of rumors that he's associated with certain politicians, that he might even be related to Kamala Harris, which I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, say it again.
Oh yeah, no, I've heard that about the Kamala Harris thing and all that. But go ahead. What you're saying?
No, I was gonna say I don't care if it's true or if it's not true. There's a part of me that says I don't think it was necessarily orchestrated in this clandestine sense. I just think that politicians are opportunistic and always looking for these types of events. And if it wasn't Jussie Smollett that they could have jumped on, they would have found another example to promote whatever political agenda they wanted to promote. But that was one thing that a lot of people were saying that I probably should have gotten at some point.
Well, I'll tell you, the first time I heard the story, I remember me and my wife were laying down, and the story came over, and we were like, "Oh, it's so horrible." And the first thing I asked her, I said, "Well, who the hell is carrying around rope and bleach at 2:00 in the morning looking for somebody who was 4 hours late off a plane? And who the hell's going to Subway at 3? Subway's open at 3:00 in the morning." There was a lot of questions I had. I was like, "This just doesn't make any sense." But that was me being an officer thinking about okay, if I was investigating this. Two white guys in a middle Chicago on a sub 20-degree night walking around with bleach and
MAGA hats. No, with the red MAGA hats in Chicago.
Chicago? Do they know where these white guys are brave in a black neighborhood too? Because he's not living, what I'm saying? Really? And these guys are.
The other thing is, and which is why I think people were, even more frustrated with Jussie in particular, is because it was sort of like a culmination of a series of fake racist crimes in the States that got massive publicity, and typically the ones that occurred in the past were not celebrity status. And then when you finally have this celebrity status one that's determined to be a hoax, then everyone's frustration boils over with this one catalyst that they can really go after. But there had been a slew of them, and this was sort of like Jussie Smollett was like sort of the straw that broke the camel's back, except it wasn't a straw, it was a tree.
But it exposed? It exposed the danger of playing identity politics. That's what it did, because all these people jumped on the identity politics piece of it. Oh my God, it was a racist hate crime for MAGA supporters, blah, 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 blah. And then to find out it was a hoax. It showed you that all of those, that the liberals who always jump on conservatives for being prejudgmental, for not being sensitive enough, themselves were prejudgmental and not being sensitive enough, not understanding that just because somebody says that they are, not even thinking about the facts, just jumping on it saying, we believe this guy, now come to find out it's a hoax. And now it's interesting because you haven't heard all these now people who are jumping on him, Jussie, who've now come and said, well, hey, he was wrong and he should be punished. You haven't heard that from celebrities. Matter of fact, you've even heard some of the stars talking about we still support him. and I think that's the real pain here, is because if you're going to play identity politics, then you got to take the good with the bad. This was bad, and you got to own it. And they're trying not to own it. So,
yeah, well, no, that's an amazing thing. And there's so many like paths in this particular lawsuit that we have to follow. Like, I don't know what the status now is of the Osundaro brothers defamation lawsuit against Smollett's lawyers. I want to know what's going on with that.
I got to look that up, because one thing, usually when as you have the immunity when you're speaking on behalf of your clients, but I was looking at some defamation cases. If the lawyer defames someone, even if you're representing a client, they can still be held liable for defamation if the statement's not true.
No, if the statement's not true. See that?
Yeah.
When and it's something that the people brought up with the Osundaro brothers, is publicly outing them as publicly accusing them of being gay, or even publicly outing them if they are in fact gay. On the one hand, if it's a false statement, it's defamation with potentially serious consequences, given that it's illegal in Nigeria, and everyone's saying like they can't go back to their home country because people are going to think that they're gay, which is illegal back home, and it could be punishable. And then the flip side is, if they are, then it goes into not defamation, but public disclosure of a private fact, and then whether or not they're treated as limited purpose public figures, where I don't know what the public disclosure rules are. A lot of interesting questions there, and I do want to know. I mean, I got to follow up on that. I need to know where that is, because that lawsuit was interesting.
That's going to be fascinating. Yeah, it's going to be fascinating.
And there was that part, and then we're going to get to the depositions in Jussie Smollett. What was it? I think that was pretty much it in Smollett. It was. It's interesting. He's still claiming the innocence, which I think is just.
Well, I do want to say this for those of you who out there don't know, the city of Chicago didn't file this lawsuit because they want this $170,000. That's just not happening. What they wanted to happen is that they wanted the evidence that they had against Jussie Smollett to be put forth in the public. Because what happens is, after his case was dismissed, remember, the judge sealed all that evidence, and the cops were like, we had such overwhelming evidence that he's guilty, but now it's sealed because the resolution of the criminal matter. And at the end, the defense was like, let's seal the file. The judge agreed, and the prosecutor didn't say anything, so the file was sealed. So in other words, the evidence disappeared. That's why Jussie Smollett was able to come out and say, I'm innocent, because nobody could see the file. So they sued. So, because now you're in a lawsuit, that evidence now becomes public, and now you can see what the police have and get them on record. Now you get to interrogate Jussie Smollett.
Oh, you got the video of him walking around his apartment with the rope.
Yeah, you get to see all that now. Before, they were trying to hide it. So that's what this real lawsuit really is about. It's about the city of Chicago and the police department saying, we want you to see the evidence we had, so he can't claim that he's innocent.
And so the question,
allegedly.
Well, the question I asked, at what point does he become, in one of my videos, at what point does he become unforgivable? Like, unforgivable, but at what point can you forgive but never trust, or never, you can forgive but never trust? At what point does he become unforgivable? Even if he comes out tomorrow, like Lance Armstrong, 5 years into his accusations, and say, I thought it was right when I was doing it. I was doing it for whatever the reasons. Forgive me now. Like, I don't think anyone ever forgave Lance Armstrong, even after he admitted that he was the most treasonous liar from the outset. Like, people listened but never forgave, I don't think.
Well, he destroyed people's lives too. Lance Armstrong was a real scumbag. I think the problem is, even with me, when I talk to my liberal friends, when I speak to people, the big issue is why would Jussie do this? He was on the top of his career, making $100,000 an episode. He's a millionaire. Why do this to put yourself in this position? And that's what I think people, because even when I was a prosecutor, it was so funny. A lot of times you'd have this knockdown evidence, but if you didn't know the motive, that's all the questions you would get. What's the motive? Why? And like, I don't need a reason why. You got him on video doing it. And why? Because people just want to know why something happened and what was the person's motivation. And that's what's happening here. Yeah,
no. Well, with Lance, I can understand the why. With Jussie, there's a part of me that feels bad, because you can imagine somebody. A lot of people don't think through the consequences of their actions when they have a harebrained scheme. Like, hey, dude, we'll do this. It'll go away in 3 days, and we'll be able to take the story to work and get some sympathy. And you have no idea, in the viral world, like, things explode and they take on a life that you could never have possibly imagined, which if you could have imagined if you took 30 seconds to think about it. But I just think he had some harebrained scheme. He thought it would fizzle out after a day and it would get what he thought he was going to get out of it. But the media can be good and bad.
Oh yeah, they give it for, they take it for away. Now, but I think his career is over. He's done, and but the thing is, we love to destroy people to build them back up. That's the American way, so.
No, well, I think it's more that I would be, the cynical part of me says we like to build people up so that we can revel in their destruction, because I think people get especially the media gets a disproportionate amount of not joy, but it's, what do we call it? Schadenfreude, but they get a lot of joy out of it, and they get a lot of clicks, and they can generate revenues from destroying someone's life.
Yeah.
Okay, well, what do we say here? Does anyone have any questions before we start? This was a good stream. We're good with 330 people, an hour and 45 in. I think we've done what we need to do. If anyone's got any questions, get some questions in before we call this quits. Nate, what's going to be our next subject?
I don't know. There's so much stuff going on. Like it's funny because I speak with what's it called? There's this bar around here. The Yankees had just lost out of. Thank God they lost. But the Yankees had lost. So my friends from the DA's office, they usually go to these bars around Yankee Stadium because it's cheap when the Yankees have lost, because nobody's in the bars. So we went there. And we had this argument about the Trump sovereignty thing, and the Trump, because his lawyer made the argument that while Trump is in office, he can't be prosecuted for any crimes or whatever. And I don't think that's a crazy argument. And so we had this long discussion, and I think that's something interesting, because and I was doing the research on it. Do you know the Queen of England? If she was to come to Canada, for instance, and kill somebody in cold blood in the middle of the street, she can't be prosecuted. She can't be arrested. Matter of fact, she can't even be slowed down because of sovereign immunity between her, Canada, and the UK. And the same thing happens here in the United States. So the best.
Someone had told me that. I'm not sure I believe it. I'd have to look into it. The thing about Trump not being able to be prosecuted while in office begs the question as to whether or not he can pardon himself before he leaves, and therefore never be able to get prosecuted. Period. But
there's a level of sovereign immunity even for congressmen. I forget where it's at, but congressmen can't be arrested while they're serving in office for like state crimes. And I think the president, he can't be arrested because it's a conflict of interest. The person who would have to arrest the president would be the president himself, because all the law enforcement works for the president. So it's an interesting little facet of law.
Okay, very cool. What was the other one that I thought we should tackle? Was the big one. I have to find the lawsuit. I have to find the stuff. But the 7-year-old kid who apparently the father was being prevented from preventing the transitioning of the 7-year-old kid.
Oh yes, we have to do that. That's crazy. I don't understand.
I have not had time to look into it. I think it was a trial by jury. So that's where we're gonna have trouble getting the decision itself. But anyways, I'm gonna look into it. Some topics might just be too incendiary, where the logic and the law might be two different things. But sovereign citizens. I have to look into it. I no promises. Sovereign citizens. Nate, you might want to do this one too. It's a good one.
Yeah. Do you have sovereign citizens in Canada?
The first time I had heard about it was on YouTube, so I don't think I had known about it. Well, Clark, thank you very much. What do we got here? We really enjoying the channel. Just discovered it and subscribed today. Booyah! Welcome to the channel, Melvin.
Welcome.
The sovereign citizens is something I want to. I like that because I get to learn about it. The funny thing is the vlog I did today, which was a follow up on Ezra Levant, and I had to look into federal rules of procedure in Canada. It's like I was more reluctant to look into that than I was to learn about the federal rules in the States, because there's something so boring about learning about your own field of law. I have more incentive to learn about other people's laws and other countries' laws.
Somebody just said, so Nate Broady, are you saying that Trump is above the law? No, I am not. I'm saying that Trump, because he is president, he has sovereign immunity, just like he would have diplomatic immunity if he goes to any other country. And the sovereign immunity that he has here in the country is that Trump is the chief law enforcement officer of the United States in the federal sense. So that's why the Office of Legal Counsel for the Justice Department says that Trump can't be indicted or even arrested while he's a sitting president. The only process that you have to get rid of a president who's a criminal is the impeachment process. So essentially, he's not above the law. He is the administrator of the law while he's in office. And to hold him accountable, you have to get him out of office. This actually happened. Most people don't realize this, but this actually happened with Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton, after his impeachment, before he left office, he actually came to an agreement with the FBI that he would, I think, pay a fine and plead guilty to a lesser crime because he had committed perjury during the federal grand jury. So he was disbarred in both Arkansas and the federal circuit, and then had this agreement. So when he left office, he wouldn't have to be prosecuted with the FBI. So it does happen. So, but while you're in office, you cannot be prosecuted. So he's not above the law. It's just like at this particular time, they can't get him for crimes.
Okay, well, very cool. Nate, let's do it. We're going to call it quits on that. If anyone has it, well, hold on, where am I looking? If anybody has any questions, any recommendations, or first of all, if everybody doesn't know Nate already, subscribe to his channel. He does law stuff as well. And we're going to make a thing of this Saturday night live stream. Any recommendations, DM me, Twitter, all this other stuff. Let's see here. Viva Frei, how do I secure you as my lawyer indefinitely? I'm only a lawyer in Quebec, and
where do you live?
I don't want to do law. I like YouTube videos better than the law. This is fun though. It's a lot of fun to be able to delve into.
You learn so much too, because like when I was practicing, it was just criminal law. It was in that really narrow space. And here you get to learn. It's almost like being in law school again, which I enjoyed. You get like, we're touching on defamation. Like I'm learning so much about defamation. Now I'm getting the sovereign immunity. So it's just so fascinating, just what you can touch. And you get more expansive here online. So
yeah, very cool. All right, people. Oh, there's another question here. Per Johansson, let's see. Would it not be a problem of interest for the FBI to give the president that as well?
Thumbs up? What are you talking about?
Viva Frei, would it not be a problem of interest? Okay, rephrase that and make sure. I think you should ask Nate.
I think he's saying a conflict of interest.
For the FBI to give the president that as well. What do we mean by that?
Yeah.
Okay, so Per, ask it again. I mean, make sure. Let us know what you mean by that exactly.
Well,
this
quid pro quo. Uh-oh.
This one is the political Rorschach test.
Well, honestly, I don't know about the quid pro, to be honest with you. But if he held up the money until they did the investigation, that is a quid pro quo. But I'm not even sure if that actually happened.
There's too much in there. People,
it's just
what they want. Viva Frei, the judge overturned the jury verdict for custody of that 7-year-old.
Oh wow.
We have some of these cases in Canada. A lot of people. We have a case of a I forget her name. Someone's going to remember the name, but she was suing the places that do waxing, and she was transitioning and asked that they would wax her genitals, and someone said no, and then she took them to the Human Rights Tribunal.
Oh wow!
In Canada, our human rights tribunals are interesting. So let's see what this here says. Well, let's see a vlog live stream on the constitutionality of gay conversion therapy laws versus adult minor. I don't know that there are any gay conversion therapy laws in Canada. Jessica Yaniv, that's the name of the person. So anyways, that's a big case that's going on currently right now. And from what I understand, there were some recent decisions. Nate, look up Jessica Yaniv, and you're going to find some lawsuits that would be inconceivable in the States, I think.
Yeah, we definitely have to do it. Hold on. What was that last question about the law about? We just talked. Now just lost my mind. Oh, gay conversion therapy. It's actually illegal in some states. They've outlawed it. So gay conversion therapy is illegal in some states in the United States.
Next, a video about Lego's takedowns on Lego-compatible models on 3D printing sites, even though the patent has expired. A bit of news. Well, I don't know what, Marcus, I don't know what country that's in, but in Canada, Lego, there was a big lawsuit, a Supreme Court decision about Lego not being able to exercise any form of intellectual property rights over even parts that were perfectly compatible. I think it was Mega Bloks, because they said you have no longer any patent and you have no longer any protection. So I don't know if that's in the States, but in Canada, that would have been a settled question. If you have no patent, you have no protection anymore. That's the risk of the patent. Let's see here. The Viva Frei, the issue is split custody parents can make any medical decision for the child, so one can use puberty blockers and the other one wants to. Yeah, marriage is a very complicated thing if you no longer have the same alignment ideologically with your spouse.
But like don't get me wrong. Listen, I can be liberal and I can be extremely conservative, but at what point do we really start transitioning children from one gender to another? 7 years old is a little. I'm sorry, I just got to say, 7 years. It sounds pretty insane to me.
The analogy, everybody. I was listening to Tim Pool the other day talking about this specific case, the 7-year-old,
Yeah.
And he was trying to, he was using analogies like drinking alcohol. You don't give a kid alcohol even if they want it. I think the best example I can think of is tattoos. Like you don't give a kid can't get a tattoo, and there has to be a good reason if a parent wants to give a kid a tattoo. That's that. There are certain things that can't be undone. The child can do certain things when they reach the age of maturity, but if you get into a world where the kid dictates how the parents raise the kid, regardless of what the issue is, it's not, gender transitioning is not any more sacred than, say, religion, but or diets. Like, once you allow the government to get in your house and listen to your kid in terms of what parents are about, it's a very, very, that's not a slippery slope. That's a ledge.
Anybody out here who has children, I wouldn't trust my 7-year-old with a phone. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, she's not making any decisions of any real consequence. And if she comes to me and says, "Hey, Dad, I really look boy, and I want to transition," you know what I'm doing to her? Shut the F and go to your room until you make that decision when I would have her make that decision when I think that she's intellectually mature enough to understand the what that decision means, and if she did choose to make the decision, then we can do it together. Well, but I would understand that she would know what it means. I don't think a 7-year-old has that mental capacity to understand what changing your gender means for the rest of their life. You know what I mean?
There's no question about that. I think it's the biggest issue is just that, like, you're doing something that can't be undone. So it's not like, the changing religion example is not the best one, because you can always undo that at any point in time. Certain things, you can't let a child decide to do something that can't be undone, and that is going to have lifelong effects on the child. And I understand all of the other arguments that it might cause anxiety for the kid and stress and suicide rates and all these things. Those are the things you have to deal with. But the second a 7-year-old starts dictating, things that are done to the kid or that the kid decides to do to him or herself that can't be undone, and then you have the courts enforcing it, so it's be a big issue.
Yeah, but because what real decisions are your children making at 7 years old that's going to change them? I don't know. It's at a point. I think it's just starting to get insanity.
There's going to be I think these issues, they get politicized and they get publicized a lot. I don't know if they're as prominent or I don't know if they're as prevalent as we think they are, but the media certainly makes big stories of them.
Well, I think the media is left wing, and I think the problem is it's so left wing where they want to kind of normalize this ridiculousness to where with something like this, with me saying that I think it's ridiculous that someone wants to transition a 7-year-old because a 7-year-old doesn't know. Where some people will see this and say that I'm a bigot now, I'm a bigot or something like that, because I'm saying that I believe a 7-year-old, it doesn't have the mental capacity to make that decision. They don't have the mental capacity to make the decision what they're going to eat tonight, but we're having to make lifelong decisions. It's more that may be something more of what the parent wants and not the child. And I would say we'd have to think about, is this really best for the child, or is this something that the parents really want?
And that's the issue, is like when one parent says it's when the parents say it's best for the child, and you're still doing something that is irreparable to the child. When does it exceed the realm of what is acceptable as parenting?
Yes.
There was another lawsuit that we had to follow up on. We're going to get there. Mike Ward, our Canadian Human Rights Tribunal that gave the comedian the fine for making fun of.
Oh, yeah.
You can't force the Court of Appeal to render a decision. They're past I think it was 6 months that they had. I'm waiting on that. That's like the next big one I want.
That's going to be interesting. I want to see how they rule it. See, you guys, freedom of speech is not, because I know for us, like, truth is an absolute defense for defamation. If it's true, you got no case. But you can still defame somebody with a true statement, right?
Yeah, well, it's in Quebec you can. In the rest of Canada, it's more like the public disclosure of a private fact. Yeah, Quebec is unique. And but man, I think if the Court of Appeal doesn't overturn this, it's one heck of a precedent. I understand the decision, but it's beyond. It'll be beyond the realm of Oh, there's so many things wrong with that. I have all my thoughts. I have all my thoughts for the follow-up video, because I might have to make a prediction beforehand, but we'll do that later.
No more eating your shorts, because Nicholas Salmon.
No, I need it. I have a joke about my shorts now, but I won't say it. Oh no, that was another. All right, so Nate, let's do it. We're going to call it quits now.
All right.
Everybody, thank you very much. It was fantastic. We'll do this. If it's not next week, it'll be the week after, and we'll get some good topics. Send us anything you want to talk about. Peace out, people. Nate, I'll talk to you after the stream is over. Night, night, guys. End broadcast.